You are already underground when the lie finally breaks. Your flashlight flickers once, then steadies, its beam slicing through a basement that was never supposed to exist. The air is cold in a way that doesn't belong to modern buildings. It smells old, not dusty old, but sealed old, like breath trapped for centuries. Beside you, the dog stops, not hesitantly, not confused. He plants his paws and refuses to move. The leash goes taut in your hand. You barely notice. Your attention is locked on the way his body changes, how his head dips, how his ears angle forward, how his breathing shifts into something tight and purposeful. This isn't fear. You know fear. This is focus. Come on, you whisper, more to yourself than to him. The basement map in your pocket insists this space is stable, reinforced, surveyed, safe. You signed off on it yourself 3 years ago, before the funding cuts, before the supervisors started calling your work theoretical. The dog ignores you. He lowers his nose to the stone floor and drags it slowly across the surface, stopping at a section of brickwork that looks no different from the rest. Mortar, stone, uniform, forgettable. His paw lifts, scrapes. The sound echoes too deeply. You freeze. That sound, stone on stone, followed by a hollow reply, travels farther than it should. It drops, falls, returns changed. Your pulse begins to argue with your training. You kneel, pressing your palm to the bricks. The cold seeps into your skin immediately, sharper than expected. You knock once with your knuckle. The echo comes back wrong, not flat, not solid, hungry. Behind you, the city continues as if nothing is happening. Trains pass overhead. People check their phones. Tourists photograph monuments built on top of monuments, never wondering what lies beneath their feet. The dog whines once, low and controlled, then paws again, harder this time. Dust puffs into the flashlight beam, swirling like disturbed ash. You know this behavior. Search and rescue. Indication. Your mouth dries. This basement is marked safe. This wall is logged as load-bearing. There is no void behind it, no chamber, no drop. And yet the dog knows better. You reach for your radio, it crackles. Static chews your name and spits it back, broken, of course. You slide the radio back onto your belt and rest your forehead briefly against the cold brick. Your breath fogs the surface, then vanishes. For a moment, just a moment, you consider standing up, pulling the dog away, filing a report later. That would be the sensible thing, the career-saving thing. Instead, you take out your chisel. The first strike is cautious, professional, controlled. The second sends a fracture spiderwebbing through the mortar. The dog steps back, eyes never leaving the wall. On the third strike, the brick gives way, not collapses, gives way, like it has been waiting. Air rushes out. It smells wrong. Copper, damp earth, something faintly sweet that tightens your jaw before you understand why. Your flashlight beam slips through the opening and disappears downward, swallowed by black that does not reflect. You widen the gap with shaking efficiency, brick by brick, until the hole is large enough to peer through. Your light catches carved stone, not foundation stone, decorative, arches, reliefs, a doorway edge, its surface worn smooth by hands that no longer exist. Below it, stairs descend into darkness. Real stairs, shaped by intent, not utility. A city under the city. Your chest locks halfway through an inhale. This isn't on any map. The dog leans forward, nose working furiously, tail rigid. He does not descend. He waits, trained. Ready! You whisper his name, voice thin against the vast quiet pressing back at you. Behind the doorway, your light trembles across a wall marked with symbols you recognize too quickly. Not ancient enough to be myth, not modern enough to be remembered. Names have been chiseled away, scraped, defaced, erased with purpose. Something drips in the dark below, slow, patient, counting time differently than you ever have. You think of the reports you never finished. The funding proposals rejected with polite smiles. The supervisors who told you there was nothing left to find down here. You think of the dog who was supposed to be here for safety drills, for optics, for reassurance. Not revelation. The ground shifts. Just a whisper of movement, but enough to send dust raining down the stairwell, enough to make the dog step between you and the opening, body curved protectively. Structural instability. Your mind supplies automatically. Void space. Unsupported loads. If this collapses, you swallow. If this collapses, the truth goes with it. Above you, the city hums on, unaware that its past has just exhaled into the present. You clip the leash to a nearby pipe, hands moving with careful speed, and mark the wall with bright chalk. An instinctive claim. Evidence. The dog looks back at you, eyes reflecting the flashlight beam, asking a question he already knows the answer to. You take the first step down. The stairs groan, not in protest, but in recognition. Whatever is waiting below has been waiting a very long time. You don't go far. 5 steps down, maybe 6, before the temperature changes again, drops sharply like you've crossed an invisible border. The air presses closer to your skin, damp and metallic, carrying the weight of centuries that were never meant to breathe again. You! Stop! Above you, the hole in the basement wall looks smaller already. A rough wound edged with brick and chalk, light spilling down in a narrow cone that barely reaches your boots. Dust drifts lazily through it, each particle catching the beam like a tiny, suspended warning. The dog stays put at the top of the stairs. He sits, perfectly still, alert. His eyes never leave you. That alone should make you turn back. You've worked with detection dogs long enough to understand the difference between obedience and refusal. This is neither. This is assessment. He is letting you go because you are choosing to, not because he believes you should. You raise a hand, palm out, a silent check-in. He doesn't move, but his tail gives one slow, deliberate sweep against the stone. Proceed, but carefully. Your boot touches the next step. Stone, worn concave by traffic that no record remembers. Each descent pulls a sound from the darkness, soft echoes, stacking on top of each other, retreating deeper than your light can chase. You catalog automatically. Masonry style, tool marks, the angle of the stairwell. This isn't medieval, it's newer. 18th, maybe 19th century. Urban, residential, a neighborhood. Your chest tightens as the implication settles. People lived here. The stairwell opens into a narrow street. Your flashlight trembles, not from fear, you tell yourself, but from recalibration as the beam slides across facades carved directly from stone. Doorways, windows, iron hooks rusted into walls where lanterns once hung. The street slopes gently downward, curving out of sight, swallowed by darkness so complete it feels intentional. The silence is not empty. It hums faintly like pressure held too long. You take another step, then another, boots crunching softly over debris that shouldn't exist beneath a modern metropolis. Broken pottery! A collapsed wooden beam. Something pale that might be bone or plaster, you hope. Irrationally, your radio crackles again. This time, a voice forces its way through the static. Can you confirm your location? It's Marta, site supervisor, the woman who signed off on reducing your team from 12 to 4, the woman who stopped meeting your eyes after the last proposal was denied. You swallow before answering. Basement level B, you say. North wing. I've found an undocumented substructure. Silence stretches. Static breathes. That area's been cleared, Marta says finally. Her tone is careful. Measured. We don't have authorization for further descent. You angle the flashlight down the street, illuminating a carved lintel above a doorway. Ornate. Delicate. Deliberate. A style that fell out of favor abruptly right around the time certain populations stopped being welcome. I think the maps are wrong, you say. Another pause. Longer this time. That's not possible. You almost laugh. The sound dies in your throat. I'm standing in a residential corridor, you continue, words coming faster now. This isn't infrastructure, this is habitation. And it's extensive. Behind you, from far above, the dog lets out a single bark. Sharp. Warning. You turn just in time to see dust shake loose from the stairwell ceiling. A hairline crack snakes along the stone overhead. Structural instability, your mind chants again, louder now, unsupported voids, progressive collapse. Marta, you say, keeping your voice level with effort, I need clearance to document. Immediately. Static surges, then her voice returns. Lower. This site is already over budget, she says, and you're already on thin ice. If you proceed without authorization, I'll lose my position. You finish for her, eyes fixed on the crack slowly widening above. I know. Another silence. Heavier. You imagine her upstairs, standing in a reinforced corridor with fluorescent lights and safety railings, surrounded by maps that lie politely. You need to come back up, she says. Now. We'll review this later. Later! The word echoes down the empty street, bouncing off doorways that once heard laughter, arguments, footsteps at dawn. Later never came for the people who lived here. Later was buried. Your gaze drops to the stone beneath your feet. There are markings there, scratches, shallow and frantic, etched into the stair wall at shoulder height. Not decorative, not accidental. Finger marks. Your throat goes dry. I can't, you say quietly. The radio hisses. Marta exhales, the sound sharp. Do you understand what you're implying? She asks. If this is what you think it is. I do, because you've seen the gaps in the records, the sudden population shifts, the blank years dressed up as redevelopment, the permits that stop existing without explanation. You step fully onto the street. The air changes again, thickening, carrying the faint, unmistakable scent of decay layered over centuries of damp stone. Your light catches something on a nearby wall, a faded mural, pigments ghost pale but still visible. Figures with their faces scratched out. Your stomach turns. Above you, the dog barks again. Twice, insistent. You glance back toward the stairs just as another tremor shivers through the ceiling. Dust rains down in earnest now, coating your shoulders, your hair, the lens of your flashlight. "Marta," you say, louder, urgency bleeding through despite your control. "This place is unstable. If we don't secure it properly, it could collapse permanently." The word hangs between you. "Erase," her reply comes softer. "Resigned. I'll send someone," she says. "But you need to stop moving. Document only what's immediately accessible. No heroics." The radio clicks off. You stand alone in the street, heart pounding against your ribs, the weight of the city pressing down from above and history pressing in from all sides. The dog's barking cuts off abruptly, too abruptly. A deep, low rumble rolls through the stone beneath your feet, subtle but unmistakable. The ground shivers like something massive shifting in its sleep. Your flashlight beam jolts, sliding across the mural, across a doorway half collapsed, across something dark pooled at the base of the wall. You step closer. It isn't shadow, it's earth, recently disturbed compared to everything else here. A mound, a shallow depression, the outline beneath it, wrong for rubble. Human-shaped, your pulse roars in your ears. This isn't just a forgotten neighborhood. It's a burial, and whatever happened here was meant to stay hidden. From above, faint but clear, you hear the dog whining now, high, urgent, afraid in a way he hasn't been yet. The crack overhead widens with a sharp, splitting sound. You realize, with sudden, ice-cold clarity, that the city isn't just hiding something, it's actively trying to close back over it. You force yourself not to run! Every instinct demands it. The widening crack above, the dog's escalating distress, the way the ground beneath your boots vibrates with a low, subterranean warning. But panic wastes oxygen, and oxygen is already thin down here. You crouch beside the disturbed earth. Up close, the smell sharpens. Iron-rich soil, damp rot, something older layered beneath something less old. Your gloved fingers hover, then press lightly into the mound. The earth gives more easily than it should. This was filled in by hand. Not carefully, not respectfully, quickly. Your light catches the edge of fabric beneath the soil, dark, decomposed, still woven. You pull your hand back as if burned. A footstep echoes, not yours. Your head snaps up, heart slamming, before reason reasserts itself. The sound is memory playing tricks, echoes folding back on themselves, the street answering itself the way enclosed spaces do. Still, you listen hard, holding your breath. Nothing, except the dog. His whining has turned rhythmic now. A pulse, a countdown. You stand and pivot slowly, sweeping the flashlight along the street. Doorways emerge from the dark one by one, their thresholds worn smooth. Some stand open, mouths frozen mid-scream. Others are sealed with stone blocks that don't match the surrounding masonry. Hasty closures. Inside one doorway, your beam catches movement, not motion, but suggestion. Scratches gouged into the interior wall, clustered near the doorframe. Some deep, some shallow, all frantic. You step inside. The room is small, domestic. A hearth set into the wall, a collapsed table. Broken crockery scattered like dropped teeth across the floor. This place was abandoned in a hurry. Your light slides to the far corner. Something glints. You kneel, careful not to disturb more than necessary, and pick it up. A button, metal, ornate, the kind used on uniforms, not work clothes. The emblem is worn but recognizable, an insignia that once represented order, authority, protection. Your jaw tightens. You've seen this symbol in archives, in photographs carefully framed to exclude what stood just outside the shot. It belonged to a force tasked with urban renewal during a period the city prefers to describe vaguely, if at all. Forced displacement, they called it. Your radio crackles to life again, startling you hard enough that the button slips from your fingers, clattering softly against stone. "Teams en route," Marta says. "Engineering, safety, PR, PR." The word lands like a slap. "Tell them to bring structural supports," you say, "and forensic specialists." A pause. "That's not your call." You close your eyes briefly. "It needs to be," you reply. "There are human remains down here." Silence blooms on the line, thick and suffocating. Finally, Marta speaks again, voice stripped of its earlier caution. "Listen to me very carefully," she says. "Nothing you see down there is confirmed. You understand? Nothing is official until it's reviewed. You picture the sealed doorways, the erased names, the hurried graves." "Understood," you say, knowing it's a lie. The radio clicks off. You clip it back to your belt and stand there for a moment longer, letting the weight of the room press into you. Your shoulders ache. Your jaw hurts from clenching. You step back into the street. The crack overhead is widened into a jagged seam, stretching the length of the ceiling. Fine debris trickles constantly now, a soft, relentless rain. The dog barks again, loud, sharp, urgent, followed by a sound that twists your stomach. Scraping, stone against stone, you whirl toward the stairs just as a chunk of masonry breaks free, crashing down onto the steps you descended minutes ago. Dust erupts, swallowing the stairwell in a choking cloud. "Hey!" you shout, voice raw. "Easy!" Easy. You don't know if you're speaking to the dog or the city itself. When the dust settles, your heart drops. The upper portion of the stairwell has partially collapsed. Not enough to seal it entirely, but enough to make ascent dangerous, unpredictable. The dog stands at the top, just beyond the rubble, body taut, leash still clipped where you left it. His eyes are wide now, whites visible. He paws at the stone, whining louder, faster. He wants down! He also knows he shouldn't come. "I know," you whisper, though he can't hear you clearly through the distance and debris. "I know." Another tremor rolls through the street, stronger this time. Somewhere deeper, stone grinds against stone, a sound like teeth gnashing slowly. "You'll have back the way you came!" The street curves away into darkness, and with the new cracks spreading overhead, your light reveals something it didn't before. Faint chalk markings on the walls ahead. Not yours. Survey lines, old ones. Someone has been here before, not tourists, not looters, professionals. They mapped this place. Then they left it. Your pulse quickens. You follow the markings cautiously, counting your steps, noting each doorway, each potential void. The chalk grows fainter the deeper you go until it stops abruptly at a collapsed archway. Beyond it, the ground drops away entirely. Your flashlight beam plunges downward and finally catches on something far below, rows of stone shapes stacked too regularly to be natural. Buildings, another level. The city beneath the city, beneath the city. Your breath turns shallow. No wonder the dog indicated instability. No wonder the maps lie. This place was never reinforced because acknowledging it would mean acknowledging everything buried with it. A sharp crack splits the air. You spin just as another section of ceiling gives way behind you, sending rubble cascading into the street. Dust surges, blinding, choking, the sound deafening in the confined space. When it clears, the path back to the stairs is narrower, riskier. You're running out of time. Above, the dog's barking has shifted again, no longer warning but pleading. You glance once more into the abyss beyond the collapsed archway. This is bigger than your career, bigger than any single excavation. If this collapses entirely, the truth disappears forever. You make a decision. You pull out your chalk and mark the wall beside the archway with a bold X, then add notes as fast as your shaking hand allows. Depth estimate, structural concerns, visual confirmation of habitation, evidence. Then you turn back toward the stairs. The ground shudders again, harder than before. This time, the ceiling answers with a roar. You move fast, but not blindly. Every step back toward the stairwell is measured now, your body threading through danger by instinct honed over years of near misses and quiet disasters. The street groans around you, stone complaining under stresses it was never designed to hold for this long. Dust coats your tongue. Each breath tastes like powdered history. Another tremor rolls through the ground deeper than the others. This one doesn't shudder and fade. It lingers, a low vibration that crawls up your legs and settles behind your eyes. You stagger, catching yourself against the doorway just as more debris spills from the ceiling. Pebbles skitter across the stone like startled insects. "Okay," you mutter, voice rough. "Okay." The stairwell comes into view through the haze, narrower now, partially choked with fallen masonry. Light from above still filters down, but it's thinner, fragmented by drifting dust. And there, still there, the dog! He has shifted closer to the edge despite the danger, front paws braced, leash pulled taut against the pipe. His body trembles with restrained motion, every muscle begging to launch downward. The sound he makes when he sees you, half bark, half broken whine, hits harder than the collapsing stone. "I'm coming!" you call, lifting a hand. "I'm coming back!" You take 2 steps toward the stairs. The ground drops beneath your right foot. Not a full collapse, just enough. Your stomach lurches violently as the stone gives way with a sharp crack, leaving your boot dangling over a void you didn't map on the way in. You jerk back, heart slamming so hard it steals your vision for a second. When the darkness clears, you're staring into a narrow fissure splitting the street lengthwise. It wasn't there before. Below it, nothing reflects your light. The city is still opening. Your jaw clenches as you edge around the fissure, keeping your weight low, centered. The dog barks again, frantic now, his paws scrabbling against the stone above as if trying to dig his way to you. You reach the first step, then another. Each one creaks under your weight, the sound sharp and accusing. Dust avalanches down the stairwell, forcing you to shield your face, eyes burning. Halfway up, the ceiling cracks again, this time directly overhead. A slab of stone breaks loose. You throw yourself forward as it crashes behind you, exploding into fragments that ricochet off the walls. One piece clips your shoulder, sending a jolt of pain down your arm. You bite back a shout, scramble upward on hands and knees, lungs screaming. The dog's barking rises into a raw, desperate pitch. You don't think! You climb! Fingers scrape against stone, nails catching in mortar seams, boots slipping on dust-slick steps. Your breath turns ragged, each inhale a fight. Another collapse roars below you, close enough that the stairs shudder violently. For one terrifying instant, you're certain the entire passage is going to fold in on itself. But it holds. Barely. You burst through the remaining gap and roll onto the basement floor just as another section caves in behind you, sealing the stairwell with a thunderous finality. Silence follows. A stunned, ringing silence broken only by your own harsh breathing. And the dog. He lunges forward the moment you're clear, paws skidding, body slamming gently into you as far as the leash allows. He presses his head into your chest, whining, breath hot and uneven, as if checking that you're real. You sink onto the cold concrete, one hand gripping his collar, the other braced against the floor to keep yourself upright. I know, you whisper hoarsely. I know. He doesn't calm immediately. His body shakes against yours, nose shoving insistently into your shoulder, your neck, your face, cataloging scent, touch, presence. Only when he's satisfied do his breaths begin to slow. You lean your forehead against his, eyes squeeze shut. Behind you, the sealed stairwell settles with a final, ominous groan. The way back down is gone. Your radio crackles to life again. Status, Marta's voice cuts through the dust-thick air. Tighter now, less controlled. You look at the collapsed opening, then at the chalk marks still visible on the exposed brick, the only proof that something more lies beyond. I made it out, you say. The access collapsed, a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Anyone hurt? Just me, you reply. And nothing critical. The dog lets out a low huff, pressing closer, as if to argue the point. Good, Marta says quickly, too quickly. Then we're suspending all activity in that section, effective immediately. You push yourself to your feet, ignoring the protest from your shoulder. No, you say. The word lands solid and immovable. What? There's an entire residential district down there, you continue, voice steady despite the adrenaline still buzzing through your veins. Multiple levels, evidence of forced closure, and at least one burial site. You don't know that, she snaps. I do, you say quietly. And so do you. Silence. When she speaks again, her voice has changed. This city has survived on careful narratives, she says. You of all people should understand that. You glance down at the dog, at the dust coating his fur, at the faint tremor still running through him. Those narratives are built on omissions, you reply, and they're unstable. She exhales sharply. There will be an inquiry, she says, but until then, this site is restricted. Your notes, your samples, everything gets logged and reviewed. By whom, you don't ask. I documented what I could, you say, and I marked the access points. Another pause. You're already being blamed for this collapse, Marta adds, quieter now. Off the record, a humorless smile tugs at your mouth. Of course I am. The radio clicks off. You stand there in the dim basement, the weight of what you've seen pressing down harder than the city above ever could. The dog sits at your side, leaning into your leg, solid and warm. You realize something then, with a clarity that leaves no room for doubt. They will try to bury this again. They don't let you go back underground. By the time you and the dog are escorted up from the basement, the corridor is already changing. Temporary barriers snap into place. Yellow hazard tape blooms across entrances like warning flowers. Someone has rolled in industrial fans that howl loudly enough to drown out questions. You recognize the tactic immediately. Control the air, control the noise, control the story. The dog heels close to you as you walk, shoulder brushing your knee with each step, a quiet metronome keeping you grounded while everything else tilts. Dust still clings to his fur, despite the frantic brushing one of the safety officers attempted. He smells like stone and old air now, like proof. In the staging area, they sit you down at a folding table beneath fluorescent lights that buzz too loudly. A paper cup of water appears in front of you. You don't remember asking for it. Across from you, 3 people take their seats. Marta is one. The other 2 you don't know, but their posture tells you enough. Suits under safety vests, clean boots, hands that have never lifted a chisel. Walk us through it, one of them says, voice smooth and practiced. From the beginning. You do. You keep it precise, chronological. You talk about the dog's indication, the hollow echo, the hidden stairwell. You describe the street, the sealed doorways, the markings, the burial mound. You don't embellish. You don't need to. As you speak, one of the men types steadily on a tablet. Marta watches you without blinking. Her face gives nothing away. When you finish, silence stretches. Then the other man clears his throat. What you encountered, he says carefully, was most likely a utility sublevel created during early modernization. Informal habitation near infrastructure was common. You stare at him. Not like that, you say. He smiles politely, as if humoring a child. There's no evidence of formal residence, he continues. No permits, no records. No records doesn't mean no people, you reply. Marta shifts in her chair. The collapse complicates things, she says. Without access, verification is impossible. You lean forward, which is convenient. The room stills. The typing stops. That's an unfair characterization, the first man says. Is it, you ask? Because the access collapsed minutes after discovery, during a period of documented underfunding and deferred reinforcement. And now you're telling me the absence of records invalidates physical evidence I'd personally observed. The dog settles at your feet, chin resting on his paws. He watches the room the way he watched the wall earlier, alert, attentive, cataloging. Marta exhales slowly. You're exhausted, she says. You're exposed to a traumatic event. That affects perception. You almost laugh again. It almost comes out. Then send someone else down, you say. As soon as it's stabilized. A glance passes between the two men. That won't be necessary, one of them replies. Engineering has determined the risk outweighs the potential value. Potential value? Your voice sharpens despite yourself. You're talking about a buried community. He meets your gaze evenly. We're talking about a city that can't afford another scandal. The words settle heavily into the space between you. There it is. Not denial. Admission. Marta looks away first. The meeting ends shortly after. You're informed, politely, that you're being placed on temporary administrative leave pending review. Your access badge is taken for safekeeping. Your notes, sketches, and samples are logged into evidence bags and sealed. When you ask when you'll get them back, no one answers directly. Outside, evening has fallen. The modern city glows above you, oblivious, lights strung neatly across streets that no longer know what they're built on. You sit on a low concrete barrier, the dog pressed against your side, while emergency vehicles idle nearby with their lights dark. The crisis, officially, is over. Your phone buzzes, a message from an unknown number. You should stop digging, no signature. You stare at the screen until it goes dark again. The dog nudges your hand with his nose, grounding you in the present. You scratch behind his ears automatically, fingers sinking into familiar warmth. They think this ends because the entrance collapsed. They think without access, there's no truth. They're wrong. You still have the chalk marks burned into your memory, the angles, the distances, the feel of the stone, the way the air changed, and you have the dog. That night, at home, you spread old maps across your kitchen table, official surveys, utility schematics, historical overlays most people ignore. The dog lies beneath the table, restless. He shifts positions repeatedly, nails clicking softly on tile until you notice the pattern. Each time you slide a particular map into place, he stops moving. You freeze. Slowly, deliberately, you rearrange the papers. Again, he stills. His nose lifts. His ears angle forward. He stands, walks to the table, and plants his paw directly on a section marked as redeveloped. No substructure. Your pulse stutters. You kneel beside him, heart hammering. Show me, you whisper. His tail sweeps once. Tomorrow, they'll expect you to stay quiet. Tomorrow, the city will move on. But tonight, your living room fills with the weight of an erased neighborhood, and you understand something with absolute certainty. The basement wasn't the only way down. You don't tell anyone what you're doing. Not Marta. Not the colleagues who stop replying to your messages with anything longer than a sentence. Not even the friend who texts you late at night asking if you're okay in the careful way people use when they're really asking if you're unstable. You let them believe the leave has worked. That silence has settled you. In the mornings, you walk the dog through ordinary streets. Cafes opening, delivery trucks idling, commuters flowing past like nothing underneath them could possibly matter. You memorize everything. Cracked pavement, old retaining walls disguised with ivy, doors that don't line up with modern floor plans. At night, you return to the maps. You layer them across your living room floor now, taping edges together, creating a paper city that never officially existed. Historical cadastral records overlaid with utility schematics, church registries matched against sudden absences, streets that vanish without explanation. Every time you hesitate, the dog moves, not randomly, deliberately. He sits where lines converge. He pauses where records end abruptly. He refuses to cross certain areas of the room entirely, circling them instead, uneasy in ways you've learned to trust. You stop questioning it. 3 nights in, a pattern emerges. A ring. The lost neighborhood wasn't erased in isolation. It was surrounded, contained, cut off piece by piece until collapse wasn't an accident. It was inevitability. Your finger traces the outer boundary, heart sinking. Hospitals, schools, government buildings, institutional weight, pressing inward. Your phone buzzes again. Final warning, this doesn't end well for people like you. You don't reply. Instead, you pack a bag. You choose a location the dog has indicated repeatedly but gently. Never urgent, never frantic. A maintenance entrance beneath a decommissioned municipal archive. Officially sealed, unofficially forgotten. At dawn, the city is quieter than usual, the air heavy with pending rain. You crouch near the entrance, fingers working at the rusted lock with tools that feel clumsy compared to your usual instruments. The dog waits, body low, eyes tracking every sound. When the lock finally gives, the door opens with a reluctant groan. The air inside is colder than the basement ever was. You click the leash tighter around your wrist and descend. This stairwell is narrower, older. The walls weep moisture, streaked with mineral stains like tears that never dried. Your flashlight beam barely penetrates the dark ahead, swallowed after a few meters. Halfway down, the dog stops. Not refuses, stops. His body stiffens, every muscle locked, ears flattened, breath shallow and rapid. He leans backward, pulling against you with surprising strength. No! You whisper automatically. It's okay. But the word tastes wrong. This isn't instability. This is recognition. You crouch beside him, heart pounding, and follow his gaze. There, etched into the stone wall, are symbols you've only ever seen in restricted archives. Not public records. Internal ones. Marks used to identify cleared zones. Sanitized areas. Places where problems were solved permanently. Your chest tightens as understanding settles. This access wasn't forgotten. It was monitored. You move forward anyway. The stairwell opens into a chamber larger than the street you found before. The ceiling arches high overhead, supported by columns carved with motifs that clash violently with their purpose. Beauty pressed into service of concealment. Your light sweeps across the floor. Rows, neat, methodical. You recognize the geometry instantly. Graves, not hurried like the ones above. These were planned. Dug with space measured carefully. Filled, then sealed. Your legs weaken. The dog whines softly, pressing against your calf, trying to anchor you. You drop to your knees, fingers brushing the stone floor, mind screaming calculations you don't want. Numbers, too many. Along the far wall, plaques are mounted at regular intervals. You approach the nearest one, breath shallow, and wipe away centuries of grime. There are no names, only dates. They cluster tightly. Weeks, sometimes days apart, then gaps, then clusters again. Administrative efficiency. Your stomach twists violently. This wasn't collateral damage. This was policy. Your radio crackles suddenly, loud in the enclosed space, nearly making you cry out. You shouldn't be there, Marta's voice. Cold now, stripped of anything human. How did you? Your voice fails. You swallow hard. How did you know? We've always known, she replies. That's the point. The dog growls. Low, deep, nothing like his usual warning. His body curves in front of you, protective eyes fixed on the darkness behind you. You need to leave, Marta continues. Immediately. Before this becomes irreversible. You look at the graves, at the dates, at the scale of what's been hidden. This already is, you say. A pause. When she speaks again, there's something else beneath the control. Fear. You don't understand the consequences. You rise slowly to your feet, heart pounding so hard it feels like it might crack your ribs. I understand them perfectly, you reply. I'm just choosing differently. The line goes dead. At that exact moment, the ground shudders, not violently, deliberately. A deep, resonant movement ripples through the chamber, dust lifting in slow, graceful clouds. Hairline fractures race along the columns, stone complaining under a burden. It's carried too long. The dog yelps, scrambling closer to you, nails skidding against stone. You realize with sudden, sick clarity that this place was never meant to be re-entered. It was meant to fail. And now that you're here, the ceiling cracks, not collapses, cracks just enough to start the countdown. You don't panic, not because you aren't afraid, but because fear has already done its worst. It showed you the graves, it showed you the dates. Everything after that is just logistics. The ceiling shivers again, shedding dust in slow curtains. Somewhere deep in the structure, stone grinds against stone with the patience of something that expects to win. You pull the camera from your bag. Your hands don't shake. They feel distant. Functional, like they belong to someone whose only job is to record. The dog presses closer, shoulder hard against your shin, his breathing fast but steadying as he mirrors you. He watches every fracture, every drifting particle, mapping danger faster than any instrument ever could. You start with the plaques. Click, click, click. Dates, sequences, angles that show scale, spacing, intent. You photograph the columns next, close-ups of the symbols carved into them, then wide shots that capture how wrong they look holding up so much death. You kneel to film the floor, tracing the neat geometry of the graves, the way they line up with the building above according to the maps burned into your memory. This is evidence. Not enough yet, but it's something they can't unsee once it's out. Another crack snaps sharp and loud. The dog flinches, then growls again, deeper this time, turning his head toward the stairwell behind you. His body angles protectively, a silent command you've learned to read. Time. You sweep the chamber one last time with the camera, forcing your brain to catalog details you can't carry physically. The mineral streaks on the walls, the way moisture pools differently near certain graves, suggesting disturbances long after burial. Maintenance. Your stomach knots. You move toward the exit, keeping your steps light, weight-centered. The dog stays glued to you, leash slack but ready, eyes flicking constantly between floor, ceiling, and darkness. Halfway up the stairwell, the ground lurches violently. You stumble, catching yourself against the wall as a section of ceiling collapses ahead of you, blocking part of the path. Dust erupts, choking, blinding. The dog barks sharply, once, then pulls hard to the left. You hesitate only a fraction of a second before following. He leads you into a narrow side passage you hadn't noticed on the way down, half hidden behind a column now shedding stone like dead skin. The passage slopes upward at a steeper angle, cramped and uneven. Emergency egress, you realize. Not for people like you. For the people who worked here. The ceiling above the main stairwell collapses fully with a roar that vibrates through your bones. The way you came is gone. The dog doesn't slow. He pulls you through the passage, nails scraping desperately for traction, breath harsh and loud in the confined space. Your shoulder slams against the wall more than once, pain flaring white-hot, but you keep moving. Air grows thinner, hotter. Your lungs burn. Just when your vision starts to tunnel, the passage opens abruptly. Light floods in, dim, gray, real. You burst out into a forgotten storage room beneath the archive, collapsing to your knees as the dog skids to a stop beside you, body shaking with exertion. Behind you, the passage exhales a final plume of dust and then goes silent. Sealed. You lie there for a long moment, forehead pressed to the cold tile, chest heaving. The dog noses your face insistently, then your hands, then your chest, checking again. I'm here, you whisper hoarsely. I'm here. He settles only when you sit up, leaning hard against your side, solid as stone. Footsteps echo overhead. Voices. The door slams open and Marta steps in, flanked by two uniformed security officers. Her eyes flit from you to the dog to the dust coating you both. For a split second, something human breaks through her expression. Then it's gone. You shouldn't have done that, she says quietly. You look up at her, exhausted beyond politeness. I did exactly what I was supposed to, you reply. She nods once, sharp. You've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. You reach into your bag and hold up the camera. So did you say, years ago. One of the officers steps forward, hand outstretched. Hand it over. You don't argue. You don't resist. You simply raise the camera higher. This footage is already uploaded, you say, encrypted, multiple locations. Automatic release if I don't check in. It isn't entirely true, but it's close enough. Marta studies your face, searching for cracks, finding none. Her shoulders sag almost imperceptibly. You've destroyed your career, she says. You glance down at the dog, at the dust still clinging to his whiskers, at the quiet certainty in his presence. No, you reply. I've documented the truth. She turns away. Orders are given. Reports will be written. Language will be softened, then sharpened, then dulled again. There will be hearings that sound like accountability and decisions that sound like inevitability. As they lead you out, the dog walks at your side, head high, unflinching. You know what comes next. You'll be discredited, labeled reckless, unreliable, too emotional, too invested. They'll call it a tragedy. They won't call it a crime. But the footage exists, the dates exist, and somewhere beneath the city, stone has shifted just enough that it will never fully settle again. They don't put you in a cell. That would be too obvious. Instead, they put you in a room that pretends to be polite, white walls, a metal chair, a table wiped clean so many times it smells like chemicals and resignation. Someone offers you water again. Someone asks if you need medical attention for your shoulder in a voice that suggests they'd prefer you say no. The dog is the only honest thing in the room. He sits pressed against your shin, steady and warm, eyes tracking every movement like he's counting exits. His presence changes the air. People talk differently when something innocent is watching. Marta stands in the doorway for a long time before she comes in. She shuts it behind her. No phones, she says, and places yours on the table like a confiscated weapon. No calls, no posts. Not until we decide what this is. What this is, you repeat, tasting the word like rust. She doesn't look at you. She looks at the dog briefly, and something in her face flickers. An old memory maybe, or an old shame. You want to be a martyr, she says. That's the story you're writing. You shift, shoulder pulsing with pain, and the chair scrapes softly against the floor. I want the truth to stay above ground, you reply. Marta's mouth tightens. Truth, she says quietly, is a negotiation. The dog's ears lift at her tone. He makes a sound in his chest, low, controlled. Not aggression, warning, Marta notices. She exhales, and for the first time, her confidence thins. They're coming, she says. People you can't out, stubborn. They'll offer you a deal. They'll make it sound like mercy. Don't mistake it. You lean forward. Why are you telling me this, you ask. Her gaze snaps to yours. Because I've watched this happen before, she says, and I'm tired of watching. The words hang in the room like a confession neither of you asked for. Before you can answer, footsteps approach. 2 sets, heavy, certain. Marta straightens, masks her face again, and steps aside as the door opens. The men from the earlier meeting enter. Same clean boots, same smooth voices. The kind of people who never say a thing that can be held against them. One sits. The other remains standing, hands folded politely over a folder. We've reviewed preliminary reports, the seated man begins, as if discussing a budget line. There was an incident, an unauthorized entry, a structural failure. He slides a document toward you. On it, your name sits neatly beside the word negligence. Underneath, in smaller print, temporary suspension pending investigation. Your jaw locks. You're blaming me for a collapse caused by decades of concealment, you say. The man smiles faintly. We're acknowledging that you acted outside protocol, he replies. That's all. The standing man opens the folder and removes a second paper, this one stamped with a city seal. Sign this, he says. Non-disclosure. In exchange, your license remains intact. Your record stays clean. Clean. Like the table, like the boots, like the lies. Your eyes flick to Marta. She doesn't look back. The dog's gaze moves between them, then to the folder, then back to you. He doesn't understand paperwork, but he understands intent. You push the paper away. No, you say. The seated man's smile falters only slightly. Be reasonable, he says. There are bigger interests at stake than your personal crusade. It isn't personal, you reply. It's human. The standing man's voice sharpens a fraction. You don't have the full context, he says. You laugh once, short, humorless. I've seen graves with dates instead of names, you say. If there's context you think makes that acceptable, I'm not interested. A silence stretches. Then the seated man speaks again, softer now, like he's trying a different lever. People will not thank you for reopening old wounds, he says. This city has moved on. Communities have rebuilt. This will only cause division. You feel your hands curl slowly into fists beneath the table. Moving on isn't the same as making right, you say. The standing man closes the folder. Then we'll proceed differently, he says. They leave without raising their voices. That's what makes it worse. The door shuts. The room feels smaller. Marta stays. You just sealed your fate, she says, but her voice isn't triumphant. It's weary, almost pleading. You look at her. Help me, you say simply. Her eyes flash. I can't, she whispers. Not openly. The dog shifts, stands, and walks to the corner of the room. He lowers his nose to the baseboard and sniffs, slow and deliberate, as if the building itself has a scent trail. You watch him, confused. Then he paws once at the wall. A dry thud answers. Not hollow like before. Different. Contained. Marta notices too. Her breath catches. She hides it quickly, but not quickly enough. No, she says under her breath. You stand, chair leg scraping. What is that, you ask. Marta's face goes pale. There shouldn't be anything, she says, and the lie sounds like it hurts her. The dog paws again, harder, nails clicking. He whines once, sharp, urgent, not fear, demand. Your mind races. Buildings like this, archives, municipal structures are full of sealed spaces, old storage, retired vaults, rooms closed when policies changed. Rooms that hold what no one wants on shelves. You step closer to the corner, flashlight in hand, even though it's daytime, even though the room is lit. Habit. Comfort. The beam slides along the baseboard. The dog noses the wall and stops at a section where the paint is slightly newer. A rectangle just subtly different from the rest. A patch. Your heart pounds. Marta, you say, voice low. What is behind this wall? She swallows. For a moment, she looks like she might say nothing. Then, like something inside her finally snaps. Not in anger, but in exhaustion, she reaches into her pocket and pulls out a ring of keys. I'm not doing this, she says, but her hands betray her. She opens the door, glances down the hallway, then gestures sharply. Come, she whispers. Now! And keep him quiet. The dog doesn't need telling. He moves like smoke at your side. Marta leads you through service corridors that don't exist on public maps, stairwells that smell like wet stone, halls lit by humming bulbs, doors marked with codes instead of names. The deeper you go, the older the building feels, until the concrete gives way to brick and the air takes on that same sealed old scent that made your stomach turn underground. They stop at a heavy metal door. Marta's hand trembles as she fits the key. "Whatever is in here," she says. "You didn't get it from me." The lock turns with a dull clunk. The door groans open. "Cold air spills out!" The dog steps forward first, nose sweeping, posture instantly changed, focused, working, alive with purpose. He doesn't rush. He checks. He confirms. You follow. The room beyond is not a room. It's a vault. Shelving units stretch into darkness, loaded with boxes, binders, and sealed crates stamped with dates. Not ancient dates, administrative dates, the kind that end careers when they surface. Your flashlight flicks on without you thinking. The beam catches a label on the nearest shelf. Relocation. Program. Internal. Your throat goes tight, not in panic, but in the crushing weight of recognition. This isn't rumor, it's logistics. The dog moves down the aisle, sniffing boxes, as if he can smell the difference between paper and guilt. He stops abruptly at a crate with a faded stamp and a hand-painted warning. "Do not. Catalog." His paw lifts and taps at once, then again. "Indication." Your hands move before your mind finishes arguing. You pry open the crate with a tool from your bag, wood creaking softly as nails surrender. Inside is a roll of thick paper wrapped in oilcloth. Blueprint paper. Your breath stalls. You unroll it carefully on the floor, the dog hovering close, watching your hands. Lines emerge in the flashlight beam. Precise, architectural, unmistakably professional. A map, not of the modern city, of the city underneath. Streets, doorways, levels, stairwells, chambers. And there, marked in bold red pencil zones labeled with clinical language, clearance area, a containment corridor, sanitation chamber. Your mouth goes dry. At the corner of the blueprint, a signature, not a myth, not an unnamed committee. A person, a name you've seen on plaques and public dedications. A celebrated urban planner whose portrait hangs in the municipal lobby upstairs, smiling beneath a caption about revitalization and progress. The dog makes a soft sound, almost a whimper, as if he can feel your body go rigid. You stare at the blueprint until the lines blur, then force your eyes lower. There's an appendix attached. Thin pages clipped to the corner. You read the first line and feel your stomach drop out of you completely. Projected relocation totals, non-compliant removals, disposal protocol. The words are neat. The handwriting is calm, as if describing furniture, as if describing human beings the way you describe debris. You lower yourself to the floor without realizing you've moved, sitting hard on cold stone. The blueprint lies open in front of you like an exposed nerve. Marta stands in the doorway, face ashen, one hand braced against the frame to keep herself upright. "This is why it was sealed," she whispers. "This is why they don't want you down there. It wasn't an accident. It was design." You look up at her, and your voice comes out raw. "Then the city wasn't built over them," you say. "It was built with them." Marta's eyes glisten. She blinks hard, furious at herself for it. The dog presses his head against your shoulder, grounding you, as if reminding you that you are still above ground, still breathing, still able to carry this. You lift the blueprint carefully, hands suddenly gentle, reverent, sickened. This is the final truth, not implied, not suspected, signed, planned. And now, because of a dog's insistence and a wall patch someone thought no one would question, it's in your hands. Footsteps echo in the corridor outside the vault. Multiple, fast. Marta's head snaps toward the hall. "They're coming," she whispers. The dog's ears prick sharply. He turns toward the doorway, stance lowering, ready. You clutch the blueprint to your chest like it's a living thing, because in a way it is. It's the only voice the buried neighborhood has left, and the institution is about to try to silence it again. "You don't run!" Running would make noise, and noise would give them time to decide what kind of ending they want. Instead, you fold the blueprint carefully, once, twice along its original creases, honoring the hands that meant it to be permanent. You slide it into the waterproof sleeve in your bag, fingers precise despite the thunder in your chest. The dog watches you, waiting. Marta steps fully into the vault and shuts the door behind her. The metal latch clicks. For a moment, you just stare at her. "You don't have to," you begin. "I know," she says, voice steady in a way you didn't think she had left. "But I should have done this years ago." Footsteps hammer closer in the corridor. Voices overlap now, sharp and urgent. Someone tries the vault handle. Locked. A curse, muffled by steel. Marta moves fast. She crosses the room and yanks open a drawer you didn't notice before, pulling out a slim device no bigger than a phone. "Emergency catalog uplink," she says. "Internal backups." Meant for fires. Your pulse spikes. "You can upload it, I can flood it," she replies. "Once it's in the system, it propagates. Archives, redundancies, external mirrors." She meets your gaze. "They can't unring that bell." The dog shifts, nails scraping softly. He noses the door, then looks back at you, checking, asking. You nod once. Marta plugs the device into the vault's terminal. The screen flickers to life, casting cold light across the shelves. She pulls the blueprint from your bag and feeds it carefully into the scanner. The machine hums. Outside, the voices rise. "Open this door! Stand down! This is an internal matter!" A heavy impact rattles the hinges. The dog growls, deep in warning, body braced. The scan completes with a soft chime. Marta doesn't hesitate. She hits UPLO-aid. The screen fills with progress bars, multiplying, branching, copying themselves faster than anyone can stop. Your breath comes shallow. Another impact slams into the door. The metal buckles inward slightly. "They'll say it's fake," you say quietly. "They always do," Marta replies. "At first, the upload hits 100%. For a heartbeat, nothing happens." Then alerts cascade across the screen, automated confirmations, time-stamped, indisputable. The blueprint exists now in places neither of you can see, on servers governed by rules older and stronger than any single official. The door gives way with a shriek of tearing metal. "Security floods in!" The men from before push through, faces tight with something close to panic. One reaches for the terminal. "Too late! What have you done?" the standing man snaps. Marta turns to face them, shoulders squared. "What should have been done decades ago," she says. Hands grab your arms. Not rough, careful, controlled, practiced. The dog lunges forward with a sharp bark, teeth bared just long enough to make them flinch. "Easy," someone says quickly. "Easy." You drop to one knee and put a hand on the dog's chest, steadying him. He trembles, then stills, eyes locked on you, trusting. "I'm okay," you murmur. They separate you and Marta. Someone shuts down the terminal with furious jabs. Someone else speaks rapidly into a radio. Outside the vault, the building feels suddenly smaller, the air charged. People line the corridor now. Clerks, archivists, junior staff, drawn by the noise, by instinct, by the sense that something irreversible has just occurred. Phones come out, whispers ripple. By the time they escort you into daylight, it's already happening. A journalist you recognize from a conference years ago stands at the perimeter, phone pressed to her ear, eyes sharp. Across the street, another camera appears, then another. Notifications bloom across screens like fractures spreading through glass. "Leaked! Archival! Materials! Raise questions about historic redevelopment, undercity, blueprints, such as systematic, displacement." The institution moves fast, but the truth moves faster when it finally has oxygen. They release you without ceremony, no apology, no explanation, just a warning delivered in the careful language of liability. Your credentials are suspended indefinitely. Your access revoked permanently. You nod as if you expected nothing else. That night, you sit on your apartment floor with the dog's head heavy in your lap, the glow of your laptop painting the walls and shifting light. The blueprint is everywhere now, analyzed, enlarged, annotated by people who know how to read what you saw underground. Historians, structural engineers, community leaders whose grandparents disappeared from records at the same time. The dates cluster on those plaques. Stories pour out. Names return. Protests gather by morning, candles lining streets that were never meant to remember what they stand on. You scroll until your eyes ache. You don't look for your name. You already know how they'll frame it. Reckless, emotional, disgraced, a necessary sacrifice. The dog shifts, sighs, and presses closer. You bury your fingers in his fur, breathing in the familiar, grounding scent of home. "You did good," you whisper, not to yourself. Outside, sirens wail. Somewhere nearby, voices chant. The city is awake in a way it hasn't been for a long time. You close the laptop. For the first time since the basement wall cracked open, the silence that follows doesn't feel like erasure. It feels like the pause before accountability. Morning comes quietly. No sirens, no shouting. Just light easing through your curtains, touching the edges of a city that woke up different than it went to sleep. The dog lifts his head first. Always first. He listens, ears tilting, cataloging a world that feels subtly altered. When nothing threatens, he exhales and settles again, pressing his weight into your thigh like an anchor. "You don't rush to check your phone!" You already know what it will say. When you finally do, hours later, the headlines have shifted from leak to investigation, from allegations to confirmation. Names you've seen carved into stone plaques and etched into blueprints are spoken aloud on morning broadcasts. Stripped of honorifics, a commission is announced. Independent, public, unavoidable. They call it reconciliation. You call it late. Your inbox is a mess. Support mixed with vitriol. Messages from people you've never met who recognize streets their grandparents described but were told never existed. One email stands out, short, unpolished. My family disappeared from records in 1892. Thank you for finding them. You close your eyes. The weight that settles in your chest isn't relief. It's gravity, the kind that comes when something finally lands where it always belonged. Your phone buzzes again. Marta! You hesitate, then answer. I resigned, she says without preamble. You absorb that quietly. They'll paint me as complicit, she continues. Because I was, but I testified first. A pause. I name names. You look at the dog. He watches you, calm, present, uninterested in politics. That matters, you say. I know, she replies. I just needed to hear it. When the call ends, you sit there for a long time, sunlight warming the floor, the dog's steady breathing sinking your own. Weeks pass. The city changes slowly at first, then all at once. Temporary fences become viewing platforms. Archaeological teams arrive, real ones with independence written into their contracts. Families gather at the edges of excavations holding photographs, candles, fragments of memory that finally have somewhere to go. You aren't invited back underground. Officially, you're unqualified. Unofficially, you're radioactive. That's fine. You stand at the perimeter one afternoon, hands in your pockets, watching careful brushes reveal the outline of a doorway you've already walked through in darkness. The dog sits beside you, tail thumping softly against the pavement. A young journalist approaches, recorder in hand. Do you regret it? She asks. Losing everything? You glance down at the dog, at the city, finally forced to look at its own foundations. No, you say. I regret that it took this long. She thanks you and moves on. You don't stay for the cameras. At home, life reassembles itself in quieter ways. Consulting work, teaching, advising communities who want to know what might be buried beneath their own streets and what it would cost to uncover it. Sometimes, late at night, you dream of stairwells and sealed air and stone grinding patiently, but the dreams always end the same way now, with light. Months later, a memorial opens, not underground, in the open air where no one can pretend not to see it. Names are carved, this time completely, carefully, without erasure. Dates are contextualized. Language is precise, honest. You stand there as people pass, fingers tracing letters, tears falling freely in a place that refuses to hide them. The dog lies at your feet, chin on his paws, content. Older now, a little slower, still watching. A child asks if he's a hero. You shake your head gently. He just listened, you say. Better than most of us. As dusk settles, the memorial lights flick on, illuminating stone that no longer carries secrets, only memory. You kneel and rest your forehead briefly against the cool surface, not in apology, in acknowledgement. Above you, the city breathes. Below you, history is no longer silent.